Inside PressBox is presented by Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Go to Freedmont.com now for all of your mortgage needs. And welcome back to Inside PressBox. You know, sports is an awful lot about the people who play the games, but increasingly the information we need when we watch games, that's causing us more to focus on the numbers. And joining me right now for a look at that statistical side of sports, and our kudos to our people there that prompt us, they spelled statistician right, is statistician and longtime local behind-the-scenes guy, Russ Dlin. And I got to say, this guy's a friend of mine. I started you in the business a little bit, gave you a little bit of thread. You used to do updates for me on the radio. Got to be 17 years ago?
I would say at least 17. Actually, something like 19 years ago.
19 years ago.
It's been a while, let's put it that way.
And then you met Mike Gaffigan through working for me, and that was just at the time that the CFL Stallions, or the CFL Colts they were called briefly. So that's how you got your start in stats.
That is how I got started, actually. It was pretty amazing. I was on the football field when I was interning with you, and Mike Gaffigan approached me and said, "Hey, ESPN is televising this game, and we need a stats guy for the broadcast. Are you interested?" And he told me, it said, "Hey, it pays $100, and me right out of college, $100 is like $1 million. So I would take that in a heartbeat." And I went up to the broadcast booth and met Gus Johnson and Mike Mayock, who is now with the NFL Network, Mike Mayock.
God, it's hard to believe that they did CFL games back then.
That's right. And right after that game, Gus and Mike said to me, "Hey, are you interested in coming back next week?" I said, "Sure." And that was my start.
And that was how it got born.
That's how it got started.
So tell me a little bit about when we hear the stats on a game, like this week we'll be watching the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens play football, and we'll hear these stats. If you weren't working that game and Joe Johnson was doing the stats, would he have the same stats as Russ Dlin, or do each of you come up with your own statistics?
I think each of us have our own way of doing statistics. I mean, what I do is I try and make sure I know as much as possible before that game. And this weekend, Marv Albert and Rich Gannon are working the game. So I am like their information resource. So during commercial breaks, they will literally say to me, "Hey, Russ, is this right? Or do you have a number on this?" And the more I know, the better the broadcast is.
And the more conversational they can bring some of that information so it doesn't come. Russ Dlin is telling us that the Ravens have a tendency to do that. They get the information and are able to portray it as their information a lot of times.
Exactly. I just want to make sure it's correct, because they have producers and directors in their ear, and they're not always informational people. So that's why I'm there, is to make sure that the numbers throughout the game are correct.
All right. Now, Russ is doing some stats for us. He writes a stats column for us every Friday at PressBox. But I've got to ask you, this week, can you get, we're taping a couple days out from that, I want a stat on what the Ravens' record is with Marv Albert and Rich Gannon, okay, as the announcer.
I wish I had it, but the one stat I really like is obviously the Baltimore Ravens at home versus on the road, night and day. 31-5 under Flacco at home, 13-15 on the road. And the Cleveland Browns are getting much better. I was in Cleveland last week, worked the San Diego Chargers game,
and watched them win in miserable conditions over the San Diego Chargers.
They are now the Cleveland Browns are now 2-41 since 1975 when they score less than 7 points in a game.
2-41.
Yes, so
unbelievable.
I really think this is going to be a tough game for the Ravens.
But maybe more importantly than anything, since Jimmy Haslam took over as owner of the team, they're 2-1, I believe, correct?
That's correct. Actually, I had a chance to meet Jimmy Haslam last week in the booth, and he really is going up and down that roster to say either we're keeping this guy or getting rid of this guy, and that's from top to bottom.
Yeah, so, but he's new. To be doing that, you really know he's new at owning a football team. Here's the most important thing. Obviously, the stats make up a lot of what's going to take place on the field, but the stats don't tell you a lot about the Ravens' defense this year. You know, in other words, you hear the Ravens are 4-0 after a bye under Harbaugh, and they're this on the road and all that. But what is their record when their defense has been as porous as it has? They don't really have a big statistic for that.
Not really, except if you look at the last 3 weeks for the Baltimore Ravens, they've given up 622 yards rushing, which is the most they've ever given up in a 3-game span. Matter of fact, it's the most in the NFL right now with anybody with a winning record. So Trent Richardson last week, again, he ran for 122 yards, a career high. Are the Baltimore Ravens going to be able to stop that guy this week? That is the key to this game.
I think given the bye, I think they will come up with ways. I think Dean Pease is an awfully good defensive coach. And statistics aside, I think that they will hold Trent Richardson under 100 yards this week. And if they do,
that's a victory.
What does that say about their chances of winning the game?
Well, if you look at this matchup, obviously the Baltimore Ravens under John Harbaugh, are 9-0 against the Cleveland Browns. And the biggest reason why is because the Ravens have been able to force turnovers. They forced 19 turnovers. And in the NFL, that's the name of the game. You force turnovers, you're going to win the game.
They forced 19 in those 9 games against Cleveland.
Yes.
But what about Cleveland? You were telling me before we taped this, their trend has been a lot better lately.
A lot better. In the last 2 years, they're +6 in the turnover ratio at home. And again, that is the key, obviously, to this game as well, is keep the ball. Don't turn the ball over. And the Baltimore Ravens, when they have a +2 turnover ratio, they're 59-2. Wow. So when they force turnovers, they win games.
All right. I got to hear one or two positive stats on the offensive side of things, because that's the part of the ball that's really mystifying me. Give me a couple positive stats on the Ravens.
Well, if you look at Joe Flacco, again, they're 4-0 after the bye week, but they've won 14 straight after a loss. And the reason why is because Joe Flacco has been fantastic. He's got 22 touchdowns and 4 interceptions after a loss. And he's completed 64% of his passes. That is, that equals success right there.
You gave me what I needed.
All right.
Russ Dlin, thanks, and thanks for contributing to PressBox. CBS statistician and friend of mine, Russ Dlin. All right, we're going speed climbing after this commercial break, so don't go away. Inside PressBox is brought to you in part by Glen Burnie Transmission, your dealer alternative for transmission repairs. Save hundreds of dollars off dealers' prices. Financing and free towing are available. Call Mark at GBT today and ask for the PressBox special for more savings.